Let me go ahead and stop my screen share here. All right, perfect. Perfect. So just welcome. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today, whether you're able to watch live or the replay. Okay, so maybe we had a little tech issue. You gotta love technology. All right. Whatever happened, let's hope that we don't lose the internet again. So in case we have never met, I'm Deborah Loader. I'm a certified transformational health and life coach. And I want to take a moment to congratulate all of you for taking the first step toward, letting go of self-destructive, self-sabotaging behaviors and moving forward into a happier, more fulfilling life. Now, one of the reasons I want to talk about self-sabotage today is because it's so prevalent. And just as an example, I attended a 2-day retreat this past week. It was virtual, don't worry. It was supposed to be in Austin, Texas, but we did it virtual, it was really amazing. There were over 130 courageous women entrepreneurs that were there in attendance. And I say courageous because, each one of us have stepped outside of our comfort zone and taken a huge risk to follow our hearts and our purpose and to make an impact in the world. Even doing things like the webinars or workshops, whether in person or virtual, doing Facebook Lives, that's really stepping outside of my comfort zone, worrying about what people will think, and if there's tech issues like this, or if I say something silly or stumble over words. But I do it anyway because my mission is so important that I'm just going to go ahead and push through. So back to the retreat for a moment. So even still, these courageous women, when asked from 0 to 100%, what percentage of time do you get taken out by limiting beliefs? And the average was 80% of the time. The average was 80% of the time of over these 130 women. And what are limiting beliefs? It's self-sabotage. Yes, and even still, these world changers, heart-motivated, purpose-driven women still battle negative self-talk and limiting beliefs and self-sabotage. So that's why we're talking about it today. We are all held back from our full potential. Now, during our time together, it's just under 35 minutes, 30 to 35 minutes, we'll be exploring what self-sabotage is, why we engage in it, and how to fight back against destructive behaviors and form healthy habits instead. All right, so let's get started. What is self-sabotaging behavior? Now, I do have slides for this presentation, but I really just want to see you, right? So if you want the slides, please let me know and I can get those to you. And also, if you have any questions during this workshop, just go ahead and put those in the chat. Okay, so what is self-sabotaging behavior? Behavior is said to be self-sabotaging when it creates problems and interferes with long-standing goals. The most common self-sabotaging behaviors are procrastination, self-medication with drugs or alcohol, comfort eating, and interpersonal conflict. While these may seem useful and comforting at the moment, they ultimately undermine us, especially when we engage in them time after time. And even if you are aware of your self-sabotaging behaviors, there's no guarantee that that in and of itself will be enough to stop it. Still, it is possible to overcome any form of self-sabotage. And yes, people do it every day. So you may ask yourself, are you self-sabotaging? So I'm going to ask some questions, see if you can relate to any of these. You tend to focus on what's not working as opposed to what is. You tend to worry or not just to worry, but to fear the future, right? Worry a lot about the what ifs and what might happen down the road. You feel like you have no value and you find it challenging to recall your accomplishments. You criticize yourself often and can't accept compliments. You compare yourself to others consistently, and then you feel bad for not measuring up. You chase away relationships, and if you are in a relationship, you quickly find flaws and faults in the other person. Or maybe you feel like you have no purpose in life. Now, for some of us, these behaviors are all too familiar, and for others, they might seem like a bit of a stretch. So next, we're going to talk about specific actions and symptoms of self-sabotage that lurk a bit further below the surface. Now, under the umbrella of self-sabotage is self-destruction. And self-destructive symptoms can arise all the time and are signs that we are trying to self-sabotage. So here's a few examples of these behaviors. Failing to take action. Having a negative, pessimistic, or self-defeating mindset. For example, I'm going to fail, I just know it. Overeating or undereating. Forced incompetence, and this is portraying yourself as unintelligent or incapable. And women are more likely to do this than men. There's bullying, self-harm, self-pity, drug and alcohol abuse, deliberately alienating yourself from others, refusing help, maybe spending too much, physical neglect, that's like getting poor sleep or refusing to exercise, eating unhealthy foods, and failing to even maintain basic hygiene. And lastly, there's mental neglect, refusing or avoiding or failing to confront psychological health issues like anxiety or depression or maybe even OCD. And we all go through ups and downs. But if you find yourself returning to patterns of binge drinking, overeating, undereating, self-harm, physical neglect, or any of the other items on that list, you likely find that you're finding comfort in self-sabotage. There are a few main reasons that we participate in self-sabotaging behaviors, and perhaps the most all-encompassing is feeling a lack of self-worth. There are a million little factors that can contribute to our feelings of unworthiness, and it would take a dozen classes to cover them all, but the concept of cognitive dissonance can help us understand. Cognitive dissonance refers to the tendency we have to seek consistency among our beliefs and opinions. Every time something doesn't make sense, like when we're hurt or surprised by an action, we feel discomfort, and our brain compensates by creating a new reality that eliminates the dissonance. So now, how does this play out in terms of self-sabotage behavior? So here's an example. Let's say you don't like someone that you work with, but one day they run out to get coffee and they ask if they can grab one for you too, their treat. After experiencing this exchange, you've got two options moving forward. One, change your opinion of them, like maybe they're actually kind of cool. Or two, you justify your previous opinion of them. They must be after something. I don't trust that they would be this generous without an underlying agenda. And once you land on one of these options, your brain sticks to it. Your belief is either altered or strengthened based on what just occurred. Our brains don't like cognitive dissonance. And processing new information makes our brains work harder and throws a wrench in the inner workings of everything. Therefore, our first instinct is to come to a conclusion and move on, even if it means making a judgment that's not factually correct. Now, here's how cognitive dissonance and self-sabotage might play out in your romantic life. Let's say in one of your first romantic relationships, you were lied to, causing your brain to form the notion that romantic feelings are connected with hurt and distrust. As you progress forward through life and engage in various romantic relationships, you might have never truly gotten over that mistrust, even if your partner has never given you any reason not to trust them. You might start thinking to yourself, I trusted people once and look where that got me. Hurt. I'm not falling for that again. Like in the previous example, your brain kept selecting option 2. I don't trust it. Your brain likes it when you fall back into previous patterns because that's less cognitive work. It would be uncomfortable to learn new information and process it and then apply that new knowledge to all of your memories and beliefs. So it's easier to fall back into old ideas and prejudices. We like control. It feels better to accept your own failure rather than face the possibility of failure taking you by surprise. At least when you're steering the ship, you know where it's going, even if that means driving it into an iceberg of self-sabotage. How about, have you ever heard about the imposter syndrome? The higher you rise, the further you have to fall. And this fear of ultimately failing is another reason that we engage in self-sabotage. Our psyche is rooted in the perception that you're not deserving of the success you've gained so far. In return, you engage in self-sabotaging behaviors, such as maybe doing the bare minimum, or procrastinating, or diverting your attention in order to avoid this fear. And I believe this happens quite frequently with women entrepreneurs the more successful they become. And it sabotages their success, creating failure, and that confirms the belief that they were never good enough in the first place. And you can see that vicious cycle. Other reasons that we might turn to self-sabotaging behaviors are due to familiarity or boredom. We're creatures of habit, but sometimes this means that we choose consistency over our own happiness or contentment. If we're used to being or feeling overlooked, mistreated, or exploited, it can be strangely reassuring to put ourselves in that position over and over again. Even though we know that these roles make us unhappy, we prefer them to the unknown. We might also turn to self-sabotage because we're bored. Sometimes creating drama or inciting conflict can give us like a rush, and being in the middle of chaos can be comforting. The good news is that self-sabotage follows a predictable pattern, so we can change it. Awareness of how it shows up in your life will help you recognize it when it does show up, so that you can take action to nip it right in the bud. The first step in this is to think back to previous times you've self-sabotaged in your life. Then figure out at what point you typically began to indulge in self-sabotaging behaviors, and uncover your triggers. So here's an example. You've had a crush on the barista at your local coffee shop for months, and you always chat every time you go in to grab a latte. So one day he asks you on a date, but you freeze and you come up with an excuse to get out of it. Now, what happened? Somewhere in that exchange, you were triggered. Perhaps as soon as your romantic interest began showing interest back, your brain didn't understand how to comprehend that new information. Because if your reality up till now dictates that you aren't worthy of love, but suddenly you receive information that contradicts that reality, and your brain sends signals to fight against that cognitive dissonance or discomfort of the new and unknown, and brings you back to familiar thoughts and patterns. Now, perhaps this means that you detach and become uninterested, suddenly afraid, knowing that your relationship is moving forward and could ultimately fail. So uncovering your triggers is one. Another is feeling your fear. So think of self-sabotage as a misdirected form of self-love. Your brain is moving you toward self-sabotaging behaviors because it thinks it's protecting you from hurt and danger, when in reality, it's holding you back from your full potential. Now, fear is an emotion that most of us prefer just to sweep under the rug instead of, working to confront it head on. One step you can take to face your inner fears head on is to journal. So next time you realize that you might be engaging in a self-sabotaging behavior, whether it's procrastinating, delaying, picking fights with loved ones, take a moment to ask yourself, what am I scared of? Why is this scary? And then ask yourself, if that worst case scenario happened, could I handle it? And finally, ask yourself, does this fear outweigh my desires? Now, once you've taken these steps and actually taken time to consider the situation head on, the fear inside you loses a little bit of power over your psyche. Now, repeat this activity as many times as you need to in order to train your brain to ease out of the old thought patterns slowly. Another one is to face and embrace your fears. Now, confronting our fears means feeling and facing discomfort, and sometimes the truth that we uncover can be an ugly one. So let's look at a case study about a woman named Olga. Now, she was always in fear of losing her partner, Jack. She told him all the time that she loved him and that she never wanted him to leave her. But at the same time, she kept picking fights and forgetting to keep her promises to him, like picking him up from work. In order to get to the bottom of this bizarre and seemingly contradictory behavior, Olga was prompted to contemplate the worst case scenario, which would be Jack leaving. She had never thought about this before because she was afraid to let her mind actually think it through. So she was asked, "What will you do if he leaves?" And here was her response. "Well, I'd have to learn to live for myself, I guess. I'd have to be independent I'd be free." The fear that she'd been hiding wasn't that Jack secretly wanted to leave her. It was that she wanted to leave Jack. Now, once Olga came to this realization and took the time to process her thoughts instead of falling back on old habitual fears, she realized that her definition of a perfect wife meant someone who acted as an appendage to her husband, a role she didn't want to play. Subconsciously, because she didn't want to fulfill the role, she began doing things to sabotage her marriage, thus leading to the fact and the fear of its end. But once she realized the root of her fears and how they played themselves out in her actions toward Jack, she was able to move past her stereotypes of marriage and recognize that her role as a wife didn't have to match up with the ideas she had in her mind. She was free to forge her own course and realize that doesn't mean ending the relationship, but it opens up the possibility for a healthy relationship. Another way is to recommit to new healthy goals every day. And just setting small goals will make you feel more accomplished and in control of your life. This is particularly helpful to combat self-sabotaging actions because it fights the feelings of low self-worth and keeps you motivated and moving forward in a positive direction. So don't be afraid to make lists. Perhaps take a moment to pick out a planner and to write down your notes and your thoughts. Start with small things like doing laundry or grocery shopping or picking up dog food. Crossing something off your to-do list is fulfilling in its own weird little way, I promise. Another thing is to stop assuming things. Don't fall into the mental trap of harmful assumptions. It's easy to spiral out of control. And it's natural to try to analyze and assess people and situations to make sense of our surroundings. The danger lies in allowing your imagination to wander too far, leading to the worst case scenario, which causes anxiety, frustration, and fear. Furthermore, the assumptions you make about the way people feel about you are often reflections on how you feel about yourself. After all, you're getting that harmful material from somewhere. It's your own self-sabotaging thoughts. If you're feeling ignored, alone, or abused, and your first thought is, they treat me this way because blank, or they must think that I'm blank. What you're actually doing is projecting your own feelings about yourself. If this goes unchecked and you don't realize that you're making silly assumptions, you will actually trick your mind into making false judgments about other people. And when you start assuming negative things, you attract negative thoughts. To fix this pattern, try and catch yourself. Then distract yourself with something else, something you enjoy. Another way is do less, better. Now, keep your days simple and meaningful. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed with things that aren't a priority to you. And don't waste your time on things that don't really matter. And oh, I get it. This can feel like a real sticking point, but trust me, it's worth figuring it out. Learn how to say no and start getting used to delegating duties to people around you. Take time for yourself to do the things that you enjoy. Like, do you like cooking? Make sure to set some time aside to make yourself a nice meal, once a week. Do you enjoy spending time with animals? Carve out an hour to volunteer at the animal shelter. Doing things that you're passionate about will keep your stress levels down and allow you to focus more on your goals and your motivations. Another way is to get an accountability partner. Surround yourself with people who are also doing their best to fight against habits of self-sabotage. If your goal is to start creating more healthy habits, but most of your friends don't have a problem sitting around every night eating takeout, find a buddy to go to the gym with. Then if and when you do find yourself slipping back into unhealthy habits, those unhealthy habits of the past, right? You'll have someone to go to for help and inspiration instead of falling backward. And this is one of the reasons, a coach can help you be more successful. It's not only the support, but the accountability. I'm going to share this slide with this quote. I think it's really important. Let me get this here. I really like this one. There we go. Life will bring you pain all by itself. Your responsibility is to create joy. And that's Milton Erickson. I really wanted to share that life will bring you pain all by itself. Absolutely. So your responsibility is to create joy. There will always be times when we realize that we need to let go of something painful, be it guilt or a toxic relationship. However, it's never easy to let go of something that we've become accustomed to. So we get stuck in the middle of two realities, where we are and where we want to be. Fear of the unknown can hold us back, but we can choose not to let us hold us back. One way to solve this problem is to accept more love into your life, which of course can be difficult if you feel that you're unworthy of love. But remember that if you're always putting yourself into destructive, self-sabotaging situations, you aren't allowing yourself to expand your worth and reach your potential. Since you can't control the love that you receive from other people, the best place to start is with self-love. So here are a few things that you can do to practice some self-love. Cook your favorite meal for yourself. And don't worry about the calories. Buy yourself some flowers. Sing your favorite song out loud, as loud as you can. Treat yourself to a concert or a play, maybe go to the art museum. Join a walking group or sign up for a class. Take a hike and pack your favorite snacks for a picnic in nature. Write down some of your favorite quotes or mantras and then post them. Maybe around your work area, in your bathroom. Plan a potluck with some friends. Or make some art. Maybe create a do-it-yourself project. Another one is to praise yourself instead of waiting for others to do it for you. When you do something you're proud of, dwell on it a little. Just relish the experience, celebrate it, It's not narcissistic, it's an act of self-care. Say you confronted your boss and finally asked for that promotion. Give yourself props, man. That took guts. Go ahead and celebrate that. Being aware of your accomplishments will boost your mood and make you more self-sufficient. If you're waiting for people around you to congratulate you on your self-worth and self-esteem, you give away a key to your own happiness, because the thoughts, opinions, and beliefs of others are outside your control. Another is to listen to your body. One of the best ways we can practice self-care and break up with self-sabotage is to take care of our physical body. So if you're constantly tired, try researching some natural sleeping supplements. Or I just started reading a book about Sleep Smarter. It's got, I think, 21 different ideas on how to sleep better. If you're feeling burned out, pass up on that Red Bull that the office supplies you with and cut out caffeine after 3 o'clock. If you're overweight, reassess your diet and your physical activity level. If you have chronic pain, look into possible remedies like yoga or acupuncture, maybe even dietary changes. If we ignore our aches and pains, we're not putting ourselves first, and we're not showing our bodies the self-respect that it deserves. And focus on the positives. Shifting years of negative self-talk to positive self-talk is a lot easier said than done. And it requires you to reprogram your entire mind, but you can do it. Even if you think that you're not that critical of yourself, you might be surprised. Most of the time, we're unaware of the conscious dialogue that goes on in our minds. So here are some tricks that you can boost your positive self-thought. One is practice positive affirmations. I deserve to be happy. Everything happens for a reason. I trust my intuition. I am worthy of love are all excellent places to start. So just repeat these phrases to yourself when you sense yourself spiraling down. Think of failures as new opportunities. Sometimes things that seem negative at the onset can actually lead to some really awesome things. Sit up straight. Right? Slouching is an easy way to make yourself feel crummy, lazy, and lethargic. Sitting up straight will make you feel more useful, awake, and thoughtful. Another one is, I like this one, avoid negative people. So if your cubicle neighbor is always complaining, just bring in a pair of headphones and listen to a podcast instead. If you have a friend who always sees the glass as half empty, try spending more time with people who are willing to join you on your journey to a more positive outlook on life. And look at the big picture. You got a parking ticket? That's a bummer, but will it matter in a week, a month, a year? Try not to waste precious mental power on things that are out of your control and that won't matter in the long run. Learn to forgive yourself for past actions and give yourself a break. When negative thoughts come creeping into your mind, just stop them in their tracks and counteract them with positive thoughts. Talk to yourself and defend yourself the way that you would protect your friend, your spouse, your parent, or a sibling. And if you start spiraling, interrupt that negativity. And this might literally mean walking up to a mirror and giving yourself a pep talk. And that's okay. Try this. Hey, stop that. You know that all that negativity isn't helping anyone here, and we can't afford to put ourselves down right now because we've got too much going for us. We've been here before, and we know that this behavior isn't healthy. It may sound silly, but it's helpful. Sometimes all you need is to hear the right words. And if they're coming out of your own mouth, that's even better. Now, I used a ton of resources to put this together. Now, if you're interested in a list of those, just let me know and I'll send that to you. So thanks so much for taking the time out of your evening to join me. I hope that you're able to walk away with some insight on how your mind works, as well as some tactics on how to overcome some of the self-sabotaging habits and behaviors that just have a way of showing up. I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Make a conscious effort to be resilient and move forward with your life no matter what hurdles come your way. You are strong, you're intelligent, and you're capable of overcoming the negative thought patterns that your mind has gotten into the habit of building. I believe that, and I believe in you. I believe in you as much as I believe in those 130 other courageous women who supported and encouraged each other at our retreat a couple days ago. And if this sounds too hard or just doesn't make sense to you, please don't let this moment of awakening slip by. You deserve to be fulfilled in your life. You are so worth making the effort. You are so worth making the effort. Now send me a note if you want support to get over self-sabotage. Let's just talk about how it shows up in your life. There's no risk or obligation. I'm here. I just want to support you. So let me put up my contact information. Don't put off your best life, not for another minute. There's so much more for you. Don't hold yourself back. Let me share my screen for a moment with my contact information. There. Website, email, phone number, Facebook, everything is there. There is so much more for you. So thank you again for joining me. And until next time, I invite you to live well. Good night.